Good morning. Good morning, class.
Good morning, Miss Naylor.
How are you all today?
Good. How are you?
Good. It's cold this morning. But the cold weather in the morning means it's going to be nice later on. That's what I tell myself.
It's supposed to snow on Saturday.
Don't tell me that.
That's what it's saying.
Yeah.
Can I look at my phone this way?
No. Okay. Let me go ahead and talk through the plan today, and then we will get started. So just a reminder, we're making sure our cell phones are away. And yes, computers will be out in a minute, but if you could just make sure that you're looking at me and listening to me and not your computer, that would be great. So today is the day where you finally, gentlemen, are going to be getting back your rubrics for the persuasive speech. And we're going to talk about lots of different feedback that will help you strengthen those speeches, and you're going to have the opportunity to make some revisions. So what I want you to do while I take attendance today is I want you to look at our learning target today, which is I can gather and apply feedback to strengthen my work. And I want you to have a conversation in your groups for just about a minute. Why is that important? Why is the target I can gather and apply feedback to strengthen my work? Why is that an important target? Please talk about that for about a minute, and then I'm going to have one person in your group share. Okay, go. Gentlemen, are you talking about the learning target?
Yeah, it's related.
Bring it back.
Miss Naylor, you used the same random fact 2 days ago.
I forgot to change it. I know you look forward to that random fact, right?
Where's the learning target, Taylor?
Catherine. You'll recognize her.
I probably will.
Yeah. She got a whole bunch of Twix for Winter Wishes that Chance was going to take, and then Chance gave it to her. Does that ring a bell?
Sort of. I remember it, but
I remember that. I don't remember the thoughts.
Okay. You will. All right, class. Voices off in 5, 4.
1.
Thank you. All right. I would like to hear from number 3s. So do you remember where you are, who you are? Number 3?
Is that me?
Yes.
I don't even know.
You don't need to stand. We're just going to go around. What'd you talk about? Jay, let's start with your group. Everyone else, voices off, please.
You can't really learn about your work if you don't accept the feedback from people.
Okay. I'll wait just 1 second. Say that one more time.
You can't really learn about your work and yourself if you don't accept the feedback from people.
Great, thanks. Jack, what did you and Brindy talk about?
Feedback can just kind of help you learn like where you're at and help you focus on certain things that you need to work on.
Okay, thanks. Blake?
it makes your work like the best quality it can be.
Okay, thank you. Emily?
It's supposed to encourage you to be a better writer.
Okay, thank you. Ron?
It lets you know the things that you get improved on from a different perspective.
Okay, thanks. Josh? Say it one more time, a little louder.
To help out with your weaknesses.
There you go. Thank you. Megan?
Just as like good constructive criticism.
Good. All right,
So
thanks.
you know what to fix in your
Okay, thank you. No?
To apply your knowledge to strengthen your weaknesses.
To apply your knowledge to strengthen your weaknesses. Very good. So this is a learning target. It's not super Englishy, but it's something I'm really passionate about because regardless of what you choose to do after high school, you are going to be in a situation where taking pride in your work and not just accepting how things are the first time around, that skill is going to serve you well. Even if you were to never write another essay in your life, the process of taking in feedback, applying that feedback, taking pride in your work, those are going to be really valuable skills for you. So let me just give you a little bit of background about today's lesson, because you're probably thinking, okay, well, when do I get my score? I just want to see the score that I'm going to get on the rubric. And you're not going to see a number score until after you leave class today. So once you leave class, I'll publish the scores. You'll be able to check Schoology. But I'm not going to show you that score until after class. Why do you think that is? Why am I not starting with the score? So you don't attack me? Fair enough, because I'm scared. Yeah, no. What's that?
So we're not discouraged.
So you're not discouraged? Okay. Any other thoughts? What happens to your brain when you see a score? What happens to your learning when you see, okay, I got an 83 out of 100? You're sad. In my experience, what I notice is that the learning kind of stops. You think, okay, here's my score, that's the final point of the learning, and you walk away and that's kind of the end point. I don't want us to focus on scores and grades today. I want us to focus on growing as writers. So you're not going to see your score until after the class period is over. Now, let me give you a little background about the English teacher dilemma. So as an English teacher, ever since I was in college, I've been told that I have to give feedback that is high quality and feedback that is timely. Timely feedback means that you're getting feedback pretty soon after you wrote the first attempt. It's kind of like a paradox, because high quality feedback in a traditional way of making lots of comments on an essay, those kinds of things, I think I calculated once for a class, like all of my students, it would take about 30 hours to do that, reading the essays, giving the feedback, and that's on top of a normal workload, right? How do I give timely feedback if that's the case? So what I've been really experimenting with is how can I give you high quality feedback, but do it so that we're only about a week away from writing these drafts at this point. And so to that end, you're going to be receiving 3 types of feedback today. And my hope, and I'm pretty confident this is going to happen, is by the end of the class period, you're going to have a very strong sense of what you need to do to improve, even though you might not see traditional comments on your essay. So you're going to be giving yourself feedback, and you're probably more accurate than you think you are. You're going to be getting feedback from the rubric, because the rubric actually has 13 pieces of feedback on it, and I want us to learn how to use the rubric in that way. And then I'll be giving something called global feedback, which is where I look at the feedback that applies to the majority of you and give feedback that way. So, to prepare, you all need to go ahead and open up your laptops and turn to your speech. If you do not have your laptop today, you can access your speech. I know this isn't ideal, but you could do it on your phone through Turnitin. So if you go to Schoology and you go to Turnitin in the Unit 2 folder, you can still find your speech. Now, there are a handful of you who unfortunately have not turned in your essays yet. A reminder that tomorrow is our last chance deadline, and so today that's what you should be doing as we're going over feedback. First person at your table to open your speech, if you could be in charge of the folders. In your folders, there are some rubrics. I want you to give everybody at your table a rubric, please.
Where did we go?
Where do you go? You go to wherever you wrote your speech. So, yeah, just open up your speech. Yes. Mm-hmm. So if you go to, it's this little bubble looking thing. Mm-hmm. It's an extra one. Yes. We'll hold on to those. There's a lot of paper today, so I tried to keep it organized for you. Do you have a folder at your table? Well, that's sad. Does anyone have an extra folder at their table? There was one on your table last night. Oh, you found it? Oh. I think the custodians, I mean, they're so great. They've been wiping down everything, so they probably moved it to wipe down the table. All right. I'm going to give you about 30 more seconds to open up your speech. And take out a rubric. The rubric is where we're starting. Okay, so the first form of feedback we're going to go over is how to use the rubric to self-assess and make some changes based on that. So here's what I'd like you to do. I want you, using the rubric, and you can write on these rubrics, I want you to put a star next to the component that you think is the strongest. So when you think back to your essay, and you may need to reread your essay, in fact, I'd probably recommend that you start just kind of skimming through and rereading your essay since you've been removed from it for about a week. I want you to put a star next to the number that you think is the strongest part of your essay. There's 13 numbers to choose from. Then I want you to circle the component that you think you probably scored the lowest on, just making a prediction. Which one do you think you scored the lowest on? So I'm going to give you a few minutes to do that, to reread your essay, star the best, circle the weakest. Delilah, there's a much better one in the back. If that, I've just never been able to get that to work. Is it not working?
Yeah, I give up.
No, don't give up. Come here.
I don't know why.
Here. I don't know why. I'll be so sad if it's broken.
No, not the J.K. Rowling. No, Jenner.
Yes. If you were behind and you're trying to get caught up, the instructions, as always, are on the board. So make sure that you are starring.
I was already there.
Oh, I see. Which one did you circle?
None of them.
For your weakest? Everyone, even if it's like a really strong weak one, everyone's going to have a weakest area.
Oh, like someone circled it.
Okay. Can you raise your hand if you have a star and a circle on your rubric, so I know that we're ready to move on? Okay, perfect. So you've self-assessed. Here's an area I predict is going to be really strong, and here's an area that I think was maybe a little bit of a struggle. And we all have different struggle areas. We all have different areas that we can improve. Here's what I want you to do. Instead of just identifying, hey, this is a strong area and this is a weak area, let's actually apply the feedback and do something about it. So you've got two choices, and I'm going to give you about 5 minutes to work through this. If you want to talk to partners as you go and just kind of workshop it with the people around you or me, that's fine. But I want you to either go into your speech and make some changes for that area that you circled, or if that feels like that's just like too much to do in 5 minutes, make some notes on your rubric as to what you would change. So for example, if you circled a number 7, I think that's probably going to be common. If you circled a number 7, then make some notes about what you would do differently next time or what you're going to revise for a number 7. Or actually go into your speech and start doing some of those changes now. I'm going to give you 5 minutes to work that out. I'm looking for people who are writing on rubrics or typing in speeches. Go. What is your strong area and your weak area? Strong hook, okay. Good. What about you, Griffin? What's your strong and your weak?
My strong, I guess, was probably spelling
Okay.
and grammar.
Okay.
And then my weak was rhetorical devices.
Okay. What about you? Strong and weak? Okay. Now, do you know what the rhetorical devices are?
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to go over that in a little bit, because a lot of people, I think, forgot what they were. What's your strong and your weak?
Face a lot of evidence. and
Okay.
maybe Just,
Incorporating it, do you kind of plop it in?
I think I did alright, but I probably could have done better.
Okay. Class, I totally just forgot that I made you a resource, and I forgot to tell you about it. Look in your folders. There is something called the feedback key. Will you all take a copy of the feedback key out, please? What I did is I went through each component on the rubric, and for each component, gentlemen, I gave you some specific ideas of what you could do to improve it. So I remember when I was in high school, it was super frustrating because sometimes the teacher would say, okay, you did this wrong, but then I wouldn't really know what I was supposed to do to fix it. What you're going to notice on the feedback key is that it gives you specific ideas. So if you struggled with a number 4, look at the 4 on the feedback key, read through it, and see what ideas it gives you for how to strengthen your 4. So use that in the next 5 minutes as well. Did you do a star and a circle?
I did a star.
Which one's your star? The hook?
Yeah, the hook.
Cool. Which one's going to be your circle?
My circle, somewhere in the middle.
As far as which component do you think is one that you're going to need to improve upon?
Probably half of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. What was yours, Tony? Your star and your circle?
My star was logos and my circle was pathway.
Okay, perfect. Alex, what was your star and your circle?
I didn't do that.
Okay, I want you to do your star and your circle. What about you, Blake?
Here's one. I did my evidence smooth, my circle, and then I did logos.
Okay, so do you know how to use this? So like, number 3 is what you think you struggled with.
Mm-hmm.
Look at, here's some specific advice for your number 3 of how to make it better.
Okay. Thank you.
It was for an hour.
Lucas, what's your star and your circle?
So I felt like I had good research and like my numbers to back that up on the things. And I had 3 rhetorical devices. I feel like it just may have been hard for you to figure out what they were in my speech. I had all 3.
Had you answered this question to tell me exactly what you did and where?
Yeah, I did. I turned it in. It was just like. It was
Oh, so you're
hard.
just worried that I didn't see
Yeah.
it. Okay. Okay. Yes.
Design your own.
And let's, yeah.
Like you could
I was just outside. Yes. What's that?
Can I go and work on my phone?
Yes. Sierra, what was your star in your circle?
My star my star was that I elaborated my own analysis on my perspective, and then my evidence wasn't like integrated
Okay.
like well. So then I like go back and kind of like go to my sources and then read like what's around the
Yeah.
quotes that I use.
Okay. Do you know how to use the feedback key to help you with that? Okay, so you looked at number 3 and it gave you ideas?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right. Danny, what was your star in your circle?
Circle was 7, star was 11.
Okay. And so what kind of notes did you make for your circle?
Just kind of see where I can put rhetorical devices.
Okay.
Try and
Okay. All right, class. If you could give me your attention back up here again, we're going to move on to phase 2. So you've now used yourself for feedback, which is a really underutilized source because when you really think about, you know what your areas of improvement were. And so using yourself as a source is a really good idea. The second thing we're going to use is the actual rubric. Here's my experience with passing back rubrics. Students receive rubric. Student looks for score. Student puts rubric in binder or in recycling bin. What you actually should be doing is looking and reading what is highlighted on your rubric because each of you are receiving 13 specific, individualized pieces of feedback. What I want you to do, first thing I want you to do when you receive your rubrics back, that kind of got weird. But what I want you to do is I want you to read through everything that's highlighted and then look to see if your predictions were right. Were you right about your strong area? Were you right about your weak area? Okay, there's no scores on here, so you can't be focused on grade yet. But go ahead and read every single highlighted piece. I'm already noticing as I'm passing these back that a lot of your predictions were right, which is awesome. It's a good skill to have.
Actively wrong by myself.
For nothing.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
And I just couldn't go back to sleep.
Hey, I played Rocket.
Where did
Bobby's over there.
Thank you. Recently changed seats.
You're welcome.
Okay. I'm already hearing it because we're so trained to do this as students. It's what does this equate to? Like, what's the grade? Is this an 80%? Is this let that go for now. Just rest in the fact that you will still be able to revise. I'm planning on the fact that most of you will be revising. So just put that aside for a little bit, and we're really focusing on how to grow as writers. So what I want you to do is, again, read through each piece. Don't just be like, okay, component 1 exemplary. No, say, component 1, my hook is both natural and highly engaging. Component 2, go slow, read through it. I then want you to choose one weak component that's different than your prediction and do the same thing you did before. Use the feedback key, look at what that number says about how to improve that component, and then start making some notes. Either make changes to your speech or make notes on your rubric. So read through, start making some changes. I'm looking for writing on rubric or typing in speeches. I want to talk to you about this one because I think that it was kind of an accidental issue, but there was a high percentage when we looked at Turnitin that was, so we'll talk later about it. Yes. So you can either be making changes, or if you feel like I'd rather just mark on the rubric what I'm going to change, either approach is fine.
Has like a revision.
Yes. All right, class, if I could get your attention back up here, I would appreciate it. All right. You've given yourself feedback. You've used the rubric for feedback. And now what we're going to do is something called global feedback. And it's basically where I go through the trends that I noticed that are going to apply to the majority of you. And we talk that out a little bit. So there are 4 pieces of teacher global feedback I'm giving you. Most likely they are going to apply to you. They might not. But I'm going to pause after each one and give you a chance to see, is this feedback that I should be incorporating into my essay? So we're going to start with component 7. Will you all look at component 7 on the rubric? Component 7 was about adding rhetorical devices. Here's what I noticed. A lot of you confused rhetorical appeals with rhetorical devices. So on your explanation on the rubric you submitted, you said I used ethos, pathos, and logos. Those are rhetorical appeals. The rhetorical devices, it's the artistry behind the language. It's what takes it from just kind of sounding blah, like an essay, and it elevates it into something you might hear in a speech. They're devices like alliteration, chiasmus, antithesis, parallel structure, anaphora, allusion, repetition, rhyming. And if you look in your notes, we took notes on 5 of those throughout the unit. We did the first 5, and you should have notes in your notebook on those 5. If you don't, I'd be happy to put those slides back up, and you could take a picture of it and rewrite the notes or get them from a classmate. But for some reason, that was one of the #1 areas that people just did not add in rhetorical devices. Now, if you were someone who added them in, but you just kind of wrote, I did alliteration and anaphora, and I couldn't find it, if you want to, after class, come in and show me, hey, look, I did anaphora, it's right here, we can talk about that. But I'm going to give you just about 3 minutes to pause and to ask yourself, is that something you need to go back and revisit? Review your notes on rhetorical devices. Make notes about where you might add one in. And here's my hint, my special tip for all of you. Anaphora works really, really well in the conclusion. So you might want to make a note in your conclusion, just type it in or write it on the rubric, add anaphora here. Okay, I'm going to give you like 3 minutes. Check to see if that feedback applies to you and start making some changes based on that feedback. You may consider writing down that list on your rubric so that you can refer to it later. Rachel, which components are you working on improving?
The locals ones.
Oh, good. Are you finding anything good in here that you can use?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Was one of them not right, or?
Rhetorical question. I don't know what that is.
I looked up rhetorical devices on the internet.
Okay. Okay. I don't know that one, but I did find parallel structure, and I found rhetorical question. If you want to, after class, show me what you did, I would be happy to look at it and give you that extra little bit. Okay, we're going to move on to your second piece of global feedback. This applied, I would say, to 90 to 95% of you. So this is a really important one to listen to. And it's component 10. Everyone look at component 10 on the rubric. Put your finger on what it says. Someone read for me, what does the exemplary for component 10 say?
Works cited.
Okay, it's about your works cited, being accurate and complete, and what else?
Shows attention to detail.
Okay, it's works cited, and what else is in component 10? Internal citations. So we're going to talk first about internal citations. Anytime you have information in your essay that came from somewhere else and that is not common knowledge, you have to have an internal citation, which is the part where you've got the parentheses and you've got where that information came from. Usually it's the author's last name. I'm going to repeat that. If it came from somewhere else and it's not common knowledge, you have to cite it. What happens if you don't? What's that called? Plagiarism. Okay. Let's practice a little bit. I'm going to give you 4 statements. You tell me, is this something that I would need to cite or not cite in my essay? Here's the first one. The majority of teenagers today have cell phones. Would I need to cite that or not? No. Why not? Yeah, it's common knowledge, right? I don't need to cite that. It's common knowledge. What about if I were to say, however, 84% of today's teenagers have cell phones? Why do I need to cite that? It's a statistic. It's specific. 84%, that's not common knowledge. What if I were to say, I think social media is a major contributor to my own level of anxiety? Cite or no cite? Why? It came from myself. It came from my head. It's my experience. And finally, surveys show that increased time spent on social media is correlated with increased levels of depression and anxiety. Cite or not cite? I have to cite it because I'm saying that these surveys exist that would not be common knowledge. What I want you to do, I'm going to give you like 2 minutes, is I want you to go through each piece of evidence and just check. Do you need a citation and do you have one? And if not, I would just put a placeholder there. I would put parentheses and say, put in citation, so that you remember to go back and do that. Okay, so read through, just skim your essay, each piece of evidence, ask yourself, is there a citation there? If you're not sure if you need a citation, ask a partner or ask me. I'm happy to help. Alex, do you have any that are missing?
I don't think so.
Citation, if it's like how the parentheses in the website.
Mm-hmm. Well, usually it's the author's last name, but yes. Yeah.
How do we actually add the citation in again?
You just press insert citation where it's supposed to go. And yep, perfect. That's good that yours are already in there. Good. Remember, period goes after the citation. right, to follow up with component 10, everyone look at your works cited page. You need a works cited page, because if you don't, it's called what? Plagiarism. So you need to have one. Some of you didn't put a works cited page in, and some of you knew you needed a works cited page, you weren't sure how to do it, so you just gave me a list of websites. If your works cited page doesn't look something like this, then you've got a little bit of an issue. So if you remember a couple weeks ago in class, I showed you how to use Word to create a works cited page. If you feel like, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this one right now, if you feel like you need that information again or you're having a hard time with it, I'm going to hold a workshop tomorrow morning at 7:30 and again at 11:25, which is when school gets off during lunch. And I will run through how to do the works cited, how to do the internal citation. So if that is an area where you know you need some growth, I'm available tomorrow at those times. Yes? You are going to be allowed to revise 2 whole rows of the rubric. So that would be part of probably your ethos revision. Most of you, the ethos is the one you're going to want to revise the most. Okay. All right, we're going to go over this last one fairly quickly. Rhetorical context. Rhetorical context, just to review, is where you think about what do you know about your audience and what do you know about the situation that is going to change the way you present your speech. And we practiced that with Abraham Lincoln. We looked at his speech and we thought about, okay, the Civil War is just ending. He's talking, his primary audience is the North, but he's also got to address the South. How is he going to do that? What's the occasion? Who's the audience? And what changes does he make? You were supposed to do that with your essay, and you received a soapstone that was meant to help you think through those changes. If everyone could take out their feedback key and turn to number 12, which is on the back, you are going to see a soapstone that's been reprinted for you. If you did not score well on component 12, it's because you didn't give me a good explanation of your rhetorical context and the changes that you made. And so I would recommend going back to number 12 in your packet and really reading through, okay, doing the soapstone and thinking through how does my rhetorical context change the delivery of my speech. Okay, and if anyone needs more help on that, I would be happy to do that. Okay, I'm going to give you a minute to process that, and then we're going to talk about what revisions will look like. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I think because you didn't have,
I put it in here. I guess I did it wrong. Because I did do the works cited page, right?
Can you show me your essay? You don't have it with you right now. Okay, let's talk more after class about that, and I'll see, make it more relatable tone with simple returns. That's actually, yeah, so that probably is going to be right around here.
But I think I did it wrong.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
I mean, I tried to do it.
Okay. Yeah, so we can talk more after class, but that explanation probably scores it right around here. Okay, everybody look in your folders and take out the revision sheet. There's a sheet in your folder called revision sheet. I'll talk about that in just a second. Thanks, Rob. So when I scored these essays, I scored them with 2 things in mind. Number 1, the fact that this has been a month-long process of learning how to strengthen our speeches through ethos, pathos, and logos. So I do hold pretty high expectations because we have spent so much time on these. But I'm also realizing that writing is a process, and I want you to take the feedback that you're receiving today, and I would love it if every single person in here chose to do some revisions. So here's what revisions will look like. Who? Anyone who turned the first draft in on time may revise their paper. Now, there's a couple exceptions to that because I know that life happens and some of you had some personal kind of one-on-one things you communicated to me, so that wouldn't apply to you. But if you turned it in late, we can talk about reassessment. But revision, which is changing the existing essay, is for people who turned it in on time the first time. What? You may revise 1 or 2 rows of the rubric. So if you've just got one that was weak, and when I talk about a row, I'm talking about there's 4 rows on the rubric. Structure, pathos, logos, ethos. You may revise up to 2 of those. The reason for that is it helps you focus so that you're really making sure that your revisions are focused on something instead of just trying to do it all at once. When? Lucas, to your question, it's due on Tuesday, March 17th. Where? At home. We're not going to do it in class after today. Why? Because taking pride in your work is one of the most important skills for any job. And then the question you're probably most concerned about right now is how. So if you could take out the revision sheet, there are some instructions at the top. And it says, number 1, to make changes up to 2 rows of the rubric. Print out your new essay after you've made changes and highlight the essays for the changes that you've made. You're going to fill out this reflection sheet. You're going to attach it, and then you're going to hand it to me by the 17th. Now, this is how you're going to fill out the reflection sheet. You're going to pick the 2 rows, or 1, if you choose, that you'd like to revise. You're going to write that right here. Okay, I would like to work on the ethos row. And then when you look at the components, maybe you say to yourself, okay, I need to revise 9, 11, and 13. So you write the component numbers here, what specific changes you made here, and then on the right, why do you think those changes are going to strengthen your essay? Then maybe for the second one, it's logos. There's only 1 component for logos, so you just write the 8 and complete it that way. Any questions? Okay, very last sheet you need today is the exit ticket. It's a little half piece of paper. There's 3 questions. I'd like you to write your name, and I'd like you to answer those 3 questions, please. First question is asking you, what level of feedback do you think you're at right now as far as knowing what you need to do to improve going forward?